December 31st, 2023 is the date. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode, the Figure Four Podcast. My name is Doug. Last day of the year, Donald and I decided to come out with another top 5. This time it's going to be the top 5 worst finishing moves in professional wrestling, in our opinion. It could be the past, it could be the present, and let's face it, folks, either way you go, there were a lot of bad ones. Enjoy the show. It's going to be a fun list. I sat down and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many. I can't say terrible finishers, but not good. Like finishers where you're almost like, that wouldn't hurt a fly. Like why? Like a finishing move is supposed to be like a devastating move where you look at a guy and you're like, ugh, he's not getting up, you know, and it's just, that beer tastes like a fucking dead man's ass. I won a liquor basket thing at work.
Okay.
And this is Phillips Brewing and Malting Co. Glitter Bomb Hazy Pale Ale. And fuck. I mean, I'll drink it because I opened it, but
it sounds like that microwave shit that they had on just passing through.
yeah, it's pretty fucking close.
The microbrew shit.
So do you want to start at number 5?
Sure.
All right.
Number 5. Now, okay. Like you said, like the finishing move is supposed to be like the cap. Like that's the cap on the match.
Yep.
It's what is going to end like that match.
Yes.
Number 5 for me, I don't know how this can actually be devastating. It's the John Cena attitude adjustment.
Okay.
He can get guys up on his back. I'll give him credit. You know, like he's gotten some big guys up on his shoulders. I think he even got Big Show up on his shoulders.
He has, yeah.
But he basically just lets them fall. Like it's not devastating like an RKO or a Stone Cold Stunner or
it's a fireman's carry or a modified body slam. That's all it is.
That's basically it. And like it's anticlimactic. Granted, it got him a lot of wins and it put him over the top, but to me, it's weak.
I think it's more to show off the power of John Cena. Honestly, because it's not that STF that he used was more, that was a better finishing move than the attitude adjustment. Pick a guy up and flip you. Fuck, a hip toss is just as devastating if you want to look at it like that. Like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, the attitude adjustment. Also, I'll give it a little bit of an honorable mention to the 5-knuckle shuffle. You can't see me. You can't see me.
Can you see me?
Get out of here. Like, that's just, it was, I thought it was terrible.
Yeah, good pick. All right, my number 5 is, when I was making this list, I was trying to, basically number 5 is going to be the best of the worst. So at number 5, I'm going to come in with the Hogan leg drop. Now, I can't say it's the worst. I can't say it's number 1 because there's finishing moves that are worse than that. But I mean, it was cool when we were growing up. It was like, because he fought some big guys. Like he fought Bundy, he fought Stud, he fought Andre, Kamala, the Earthquake. And after he picked them up and slammed them and then dropped that leg, it was like, oh, okay, it's cool. Now down the road, it got pretty goddamn weak. And it did some serious damage to him, actually, in a world that's not supposed to be real. He's had like 12 back surgeries in the last 10 years or something. And he's finally back up to about 6'6" again, whereas before he was down to about 6'4". But yeah, it got really weak. And the older I get, I mean, when he was younger, you just go up, drop that leg, come down on your butt. You could see as he got older, he had to kind of protect himself on the way down a little bit more. And I totally get it. But yeah, Hogan comes in at number 5 for me with the leg drop, brother.
That's a good one. Number 4 for me is the Tornado Punch by Kerry Von Erich.
Oh, God, you had to bring up that abortion.
I mean, the Iron Claw came out this month. I still haven't seen it, but yeah, the tornado punch. What's the difference between that and any other punch that he used in a match? He spun
Uh,
around in a circle.
his hand
Like,
was opened more whenever he spun, as opposed to just punching a guy.
right? Um, it was gimmicky because I mean, like they kind of played on the whole Texas thing and that he was from Texas
Well,
and
and
all
he's
this
a
kind of stuff.
tornado. The woo.
Right. At the end of the day, for me, it's a punch. That's like he could do that. Like it's not something that I would cap a match off with.
Yeah.
Um, Jesus, even the flying forearm by Tito Santana, I would put that over the Kerry Von
Oh my
Erich
God,
punch.
yeah, that was a wicked finishing move. That was
Yeah,
the way Tito gave that. That was poetry in motion, man. And it looked the same every time, like AJ with that phenomenal forearm.
yeah,
Just no, AJ's looks way better. That's poetry in motion. But Tito delivered that forearm like it was like, oh, he got all of it, you know. Whereas Curry,
yeah.
it was like, did he just brush his hair and Buddy fell down? Like nothing against Kerry. I loved him. I loved the Texas Tornado. I loved the Modern Day Warrior. I loved Kerry Von Erich, but that was a weak finish. Just stick with
Yep.
the claw. That would
Yeah,
be better than that spinning discus punch.
and if he stuck with the claw, I mean that's a throwback to his father. Like that's a throwback to all the Von Erichs that use that move.
Yep, every one of them used it.
Yeah.
Actually, every German that was ever big in wrestling used that claw. From Killer
Yep.
Karl Krupp to, they all used it. Every
They
single
all
one of
used
them.
it. Yep.
Yeah,
So
that's a hard
that
one
was
to
my number
beat.
4.
That's a hard one to beat. My number 4, and again, it's like the top of the list isn't down on the bottom, so they're not the worst. At number 4, I've got Roman Reigns' Superman punch. I get it. It was cool when he was a face. It was really cool when he was a face. But as a bad guy, you shouldn't be using it. And like his repertoire has gone. It's gotten more vicious. Like now he uses that front end choke to choke
Yeah.
guys out. He never did that as a face. He's just more brutal with the stomping and the forearms and using the ring posts and stuff. Still use that drive by, like when he run around the ring and he kicks you in the head if you're on the
Yep.
apron and he lands on the apron on his back. That's still cool. But to use that Superman punch as a heel, it's kind of hokey. And I just think I almost said something totally not politically correct, and I'm glad I caught myself. Um, yeah, it's just weak. It looked cool when he was a face, but as a heel, it looks worse. Don't just stop using the Superman punch as a heel, Roman. I know you're not listening because we suck, but just stop. Just stop using it. Roman Reigns Superman
He,
punch at number 4.
he should stick with the spear. I mean, Goldberg made that famous. Goldberg had a few finishers that he could use. Um, Now, I mean, okay, so Shawn Michaels had the super kick back in the day. The Usos overused the super kick.
They still
Both of
do.
them.
They super
They
kick.
still do.
They super kick the air
Yeah.
just because.
But I mean, like stick with what works. Like
Fuck
to
air.
me, a spear would knock the shit out of me. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm in the ring and I want someone to finish me off, like just use the spear.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna rearrange my guts. I'm gonna be like gasping for air afterwards. Legit. I mean, it looks powerful. The Superman punch and like when he cocks his hand, it's like,
Yeah,
dude, like
it doesn't work. Like I said,
it
I
it
get it
doesn't.
as a face because you're trying to sell
Yeah,
merchandise to the little kids. As a
yeah,
heel, it's hokey and it doesn't work. Get rid of it.
yeah,
Stick
yeah.
to the choking and stick to the spears, Roman. God. Anyway, that's my
So
number 4.
that's your 4. To me, it was the Warrior Splash coming in at number 3.
Okay.
The picking a guy up and dropping him on the mat, and he like rolls over onto his back and like he crosses the ring and just drops like a splash should only be used by bigger guys. Like if it's the Big Show or Bundy or
Well, not that
someone like
Warrior
that.
was little. He was
Well,
275 pounds, but
No, but I mean, he like whenever you compare what like bigger guys would do, I mean, it's basically like a pounce.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
Like,
I
you
get
know,
you.
um, I just think that that move would be more so fitted for guys that are like Bronson Reed
Mm-hmm.
or like guys that can use their body to their advantage. And like
Yeah.
you said, Warrior was no little guy,
But
but
when you
it
compare
just
him to a Bronson Reed or a King Kong Bundy or an Earthquake, something like that,
exactly,
yeah, I get it. I get
exactly.
it.
So I just thought that that finisher was better off suited for bigger guys, guys that were bigger than him. It worked at the time for him, and it got him over. That's about really all that he had in the ring.
Do you think the press would have been enough, or could he have could he have followed it up? Say they took the splash out because he picked guys up and just dropped them. Could he have gotten away with that? Do you think, or would he have had to follow up with something like just roll them over, put his foot on his chest, and pin them? Do you think it would have would it have given the spark and sizzle? Is
I don't think so. If he just stuck with with just pressing them over his head and
Yeah.
dropping them behind him, I don't think that would have worked. I think he was kind of reaching for something else, like to add to it as like to finish off his opponent. Um, I mean, it was to
Like
me, it was a
what
reach.
what I'm saying is like if you took the splash out,
Yeah,
what else could he have done? Because I think like I agree with you. If he had just used that press and dropped them and then kick them over and put his foot on them and pin them and talk to the sky, it would have looked hokey. But he needed. I think the splash is something he needed. But what is there anything else that he could have used? Because I agree with you. The splash should be saved for a bigger guy like a Bundy or a Reed or whatever. What else could he have done? Like if you were booking right now, what's another? Okay, you just press slam the guy.
yeah.
How could you go into a pin? Like with another move type thing. Because I've
Um,
never thought about this. Now I'm curious.
that's a good question. I mean, if you're gonna stick with a splash, go to the top rope. Like
Jesus.
do like a superfly Jimmy Snuka.
He was bad enough on the mat. Imagine that stunned fuck coming off the top rope at you. That's a projectile.
Be like getting crushed by a gigantic Rubik's cube. Um, I no, I honestly don't know. Like looking at his repertoire, like he didn't have a whole lot.
He
He had
didn't have
punches and
much.
clotheslines,
Yeah, that was it.
and then like praying to the warrior gods and shaking the
He was
ropes.
a
Like
wicked
that
rope
was
shaker. He had that down to a science. Did you ever
oh yeah,
notice when you shake one side of the ropes, the other three sides all went in unison at a perfect, it was almost like satisfying to watch? You can't teach that.
so
So
yeah.
I don't mean to
I
shit
don't
on the warrior, but
know, but yeah, I don't know what else that he could have used like as a follow up to the pressing out over the head.
yeah.
Um, I just they could have come up with something better for a finisher. I don't know what it was, but looking at his repertoire, like nothing
Yeah, I
in
gotcha.
his arsenal you could actually use.
Yeah, I gotcha. So that was your number three.
Yep.
This was cool when it first started, and I'm totally ripping on the bloodline now. My number three is the Samoan Spike by Solo Sikoa. Now, I get the idea. Like you tape up that thumb, that's a
Yep.
blunt object that can do a lot of damage. But now when he was in just one second, sorry, I got to adjust my mic a little. When he was in NXT and he gave that spike, it looked really, really good. But since he's come over to the main roster, it's like he takes that spike, he shows everyone the spike, and when he comes down, he's hitting you in the throat with his front knuckles. He's
Yep.
not even trying to make it look like that thumb is going anywhere near your throat or the side of your neck.
Yep.
And I get it as a heel. It's a fantastic finishing move. It's paying homage to his family,
Yep.
but the move itself, perfect your craft, man. That's all I can say. I just don't think, and again, a finishing move is supposed to be a devastating move. Like, oh, he's
Yep.
not getting up. That's Samoan Spike. Like I said, NXT, he had it. It was awesome. When he first came to the main roster, it was awesome. It looked deadly. But now it's like, dude, pay more attention to your craft. Like, it doesn't even look cool anymore. It's just like fans are like, oh, here we go again. So
Yep.
he's got his thumb in the air, yay ho, like it's yeah. But yeah,
And
that's my number three is Solo Sikoa's very weak ass thumb.
and I mean, aside from the fact that he can't sell, like he looks like he's shitting himself whenever he's getting ready to deliver. It's like, and then he just, like you said, he jams the front of his fist into the guy's throat. I mean, I've been kicked in the throat.
Yes.
I know what that's like. I mean, I was blasted in the throat like someone was kicking a field goal for the Super Bowl, and like that shit hurts.
Yeah.
I just don't see the Samoan spike being the move that's going to be,
it could be.
what's going to.
It could be because it used to look really cool. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like you cringe. But now it's like, Jesus Christ, what did he do? Punch him?
Yeah.
Like just work on your craft, Solo. Like
Yeah.
Solo is actually like for a big guy and a young guy, and he's still learning. But he's not bad. But it's almost like he's gotten comfortable since he's come up to the main roster and he's in a top story all the time with Roman Reigns. It's like, dude, perfect your craft. Perfect it. Work on it. Like, don't just, I don't know. I just think he could do a lot better with it. It could be a cool finishing move because it has been. Just work on it. It's gotten weak. That's why I picked it at number 3. You're letting me down, Solo.
Okay, so coming in at number 2 for me, I had the atomic leg drop, and we've already talked about it. What I never really, it's all about the image. It's all about the look. When Hogan would hit that leg drop, you knew that the match was coming to an end. But the odd time that someone would roll or get out of the way, you're still landing on your ass.
Yes.
Like it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
Like, and he would oversell that it hurt. And he'd be like, "Oh my God, my leg, my leg." I'm just like, dude, you landed on your ass cheek.
The more coming on the end of it when he landed, it reminded me of what's her name? My hole.
Nia Jax.
Nia Jax, yeah. My hole.
So I'm not going to go too much into anything else. I mean, we've already talked about it with. I think he came in at number 4 for you, for Hogan.
He was my number 5.
Number 5. Yeah. I like you said, at the time when we were kids and you're watching that, it's like, okay, the big slam, the leg drop, the match was coming to an end. Hogan was going to win. But it's just like, whenever you look at some of the other finishing moves, even at the time when he was still competing and, actively wrestling, it's just like, man, like there's so many other better like finishing moves that you could pick from.
I'm glad you had mentioned a minute ago about like how you package yourself and how you present yourself. I've got something on here that I found the other night. I'm glad you mentioned it. I had just recorded it because I wanted you to hear it down the road. I was going to send it to you. But before the show's over, I'll just play it so everyone can hear it too. Bret Hart was asked a question. What was Ric Flair like as WWF champion in 92? Did he think he was a good one? And Bret hummed and hawed and took about 20 seconds and said, it depends on who you talk to, or there's 2 ways it could go. And then he breaks it down into 3 tiers. Now, he started talking about Flair, but then he started judging Hogan, and he judged himself, and he judged Dynamite Kid and stuff. But after, I'll play it for you. I want you to hear it. And tell me what you were trying to think. Like, to me, it just sounded like he was looking for any reason at all to tear down Flair. But that's after.
Okay.
Where are we at now? Is it my number 2 or your number 2?
Your number 2.
My number 2. Okay. Now, I'm going to keep saying this. A finishing move is a devastating move. Do you remember back in the day of a gross dude named Bastion Booger?
Oh my God.
He was a big, smelly, ugly looking thing that looked like he used to be a mummy. And he was wrapped in these dirty things, and his clothes were never dirty. He was bald and sweaty. His finishing move was to stand over you and just drop his bag in your face. And that's how he pinned you. Now, I I don't even know. I was drinking when I came up with this list the other night. And I don't know why, but he just popped in my head. And his theme song, it started with just this sound, booger. And then this gross music would start. Now, I'm not denying that if you're half unconscious and a big, fat, smelly, egg-looking guy drops his bag right in your face and his figs are there up your nostrils and you can't breathe, that's disgusting and you're not going to kick out. But at the same time, it's like, Jesus, who would agree? Like, especially just a jobber. Here's $50. Come in and lose to Bastion Booger. Fuck you. He's going to drop his figs in his bag in my face. And look at him. He ate a turkey leg on the way out to the ring. He's covered in grease. No, I want $500 for his bag to be in my face. But yeah, I took Bastion Booger at number 2 because he's friggin' gross. If you don't remember him, Google him at the end of the show. He's fucking gross.
Man, that he came in around that same era that McMahon was like he was reaching for gimmicks.
Oh yeah,
Like,
you had
remember the
garbage
Goon?
men. Yeah, you had hockey players. You had garbage men. You had plumbers. You had everything. You had Mantar. That he had hooves for feet. But
Oh my God, Booker, he was a big sloppy motherfucker too. Like you said, he came to the ring, he was covered in grease. Like I would refuse to wrestle that. I would not. No.
it's fucking horrible. Like, no, I would never, never, never. Count me out. I would purposely stay out of the ring. He's winning the match anyway. Oh, fuck, I hurt my foot. And I'd roll under the rope and stay on the floor. You're not dropping it in my face. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
that's a good one.
Booger's my number 2.
I
Kind of
totally
a fucking
forgot.
finish is that, the bag drop.
I totally forgot about Booger. My number 1, and it's weird because this one got over with the fans. Like, all he had to do was just take one look out at the crowd, and everyone knew what was coming. The People's Elbow. It was gimmicky.
God. Yeah.
It was goofy. But I mean, everyone knew. Like the minute that he just cocked his head and started looking out at the crowd, and then that elbow pad came off, you knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And the fans just lapped it up. To me, I'm like, Macho Man dropped a better elbow. Like, at
Oh
least
my
that was
God. Do not compare the elbow of Randy Savage to The Rock.
like that's like that Macho's elbow. Like, you knew that was going to cap
That
off
was
the
a
match.
devastating maneuver.
Exactly. The People's Elbow.
All of
Nah.
Rock's body hit the mat. In theory, it should have hurt Rock more than anybody.
Exactly.
Like, but he didn't always use that. That wasn't always early. It was a finishing move, but as the years came on, that was more a setup to the Rock bottom.
Yeah.
Eventually. But yeah, that was a horrible elbow. All of my body is going to crash into this wood and steel, but you're going to feel my forearm and just maybe my armpit and just hurt.
So, I mean, like I said, it got over with the fans. It got a pop out of the fans. It worked for him. But to me, it was just that it was weak. And I'll throw it back to John Cena, the 5-knuckle shuffle.
Yeah.
Just get it out.
Gotcha.
Take it out with the garbage.
That was a good number 1, actually. That was very good. I think it's, mine was easy. This was a no-brainer. Like I said, the number 5 at Hogan was the best of the worst, but there's only one guy in the history of wrestling who made it on top that had a worse finishing move than Hogan. I had to go this route. I just had to. This was the worst finishing move in the history of pro wrestling. John Cena's attitude adjustment, we already covered it. It's a fireman's carry. It's a body slam. It's a hip toss. Call it whatever you want. I get it. but it was more of a way for him to show off his strength. Like if he had the Big Show up there, or if he had Kali up there, or some other like 400, 500, 600 pound dude. It was a way for John Cena to show off his strength. That's all that was. You never saw him, like use an attitude adjustment against JBL when he won the world title. He used the STF, right? But I get it. Yeah, I got to make the champ look good. He was the franchise up and coming, but John Cena gets my number one worst finishing move. But I do have an honorable mention.
Okay.
I've got Santino Marella. Cobra! And he put that sock on his hand and chop you in between the eyes with his fingers. After he put that sock on. Cobra! I wanted to put that in there, but, I'm looking at Booger, I'm looking at Reigns, I'm looking at Cena. I'm like, no, he's close. If I had a top 10, he'd be in there. But I have to give Santino a shout out. It was entertaining. It was funny as hell. I loved Santino Marella. He made me laugh every night. But yeah, the Cobra was kind of shitty.
It's funny because that was during the era that I wasn't watching, but I do remember coming across YouTube clips of that, and I'd piss myself laughing.
The whole the presence, like how he presented it, like he put the thing on and he did these things and turn his forearm, turn his wrist, and point his hand out, go Bret, and right between the eyes. It was like it was Roddy Piper's finger poke in the eye 2.0.
Oh my God, yeah, it was.
But that was
absolutely
that was his finishing maneuver, which was, like I said, I love Santino. He always makes me laugh. Now, before we cut this, I told you I heard Bret Hart. And you were talking about like presence and all this stuff, and this is getting off topic. Now, I love Bret. He does have, not as bad as it used to be, but he still seems like he just doesn't like certain wrestlers. Mm-hmm. And I'll go back to it. He was asked about Ric Flair being champion in 92, and then he kind of veered off subject, and he started rating guys like what he thought, like Hogan, Dynamite, himself, but he wouldn't touch Ric Flair. I listened to the whole interview and I went back, and he didn't grade Flair. Before that, he had said Flair was stuck in the 70s and 80s and couldn't get out of it. Right. So it was like he was looking at any way he could to trash Flair. But it's like 2 minutes long. It's 2.5 minutes long or something like that. You listen to this and you give me your take. You tell me what you think.
Well, the way I always summarize it like this is like there's 3 categories to being a great wrestler. And if you got 10 points in each category.
You can hear that?
One category is your look, how you look and your presence. When you walk in the room, when you walk out to the ring, whether you're King Kong Bundy or you're Andre the Giant or you're Hulk Hogan, there's a certain look that when you walk and you see them, you go, wow. And there's lots of wrestlers that have all kinds of warrior, it takes a lot to have a great look. Some wrestlers, it just could be their size or what they're, what they've been blessed with is from growing up or whatever. But I mean, the next category is your actually work ability, whether you can actually wrestle. And if you got 10 points in that category out of 10, how do you rate? And the other category would be your promos and how well you can sell yourself. Your ability to sell yourself as this commodity that you're trying to sell. And you take all 3 of them and you mix them together, and where you fit in the wrestling world, I would base it on that ratio is how do you size up out of 30, And I'd say like Hulk Hogan was a 9 out of 10 promo, 9 out of 10 look, 1 out of 10 wrestler, And you look at Dynamite Kid, he was a 0 out of 10 promo, but he was a 9 out of 10 wrestler, and he had a 7 or 8 out of 10 look, And even in my own case, I think that probably my weakest area was my promos. I was probably maybe in my best days I was maybe a 7 or 8 or 6, 7, 8 or somewhere in there with the promos. I could do well with when I had a good issue to talk about, like in '97. My look You know, I wasn't 6'4", I wasn't 6'8", I didn't have 25-inch pythons, and I didn't have, you know, I wasn't 8 feet tall. And I'm your basic wrestler. I was 6 feet tall. I was 235 pounds. I was 235 pounds when I started, and I was 235 pounds when I was champion. You know, I would say I was, you know, a 7 or 8 out of 10 on my look. I had a decent look, and I had the pink and the black was kind of cool, and the sunglasses, and it was different than Hogan and anyone else. There wasn't a lot of Bret Harts that came down the pike before I came along. So I was original, and so then it's like, how good was my wrestling ability? And I think in that category, I think I was as close to being a 10 out of 10 as you. I made very few mistakes in the ring.
So like I said, he was asked about Ric Flair, and I listened to that whole interview. He was asked about Ric Flair. He did not once, like he's the one that brought up the tiers. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Not once did he go in and rank Ric Flair. He ranked everyone else because I think he knew if he tried to give Ric Flair, like out of, say, presence or style, if he tried to give Flair like a 6, he'd be ripped apart. He never ever thought Ric Flair was good in the ring, a technical wrestler. He always said Ric Flair was an average wrestler at best. So I think the only reason he didn't is because I think he knew if he gave the numbers that he did, other wrestlers and fans would just rip him apart. That's why he went to Hogan himself and Dynamite. But I think the whole point of like him bringing that up was like to try to rip Ric Flair without actually ripping him. Right. You know what I mean? Because the question was he a good champion in '92? And it was like he totally avoided the question altogether. Right. All he really said when he started answering that was, depends on who you talk to. It's a matter of opinion. Well, it's a yes or no. What do you think? You were asked, you know?
Right.
So what do you think? Do you think that was an attack on Flair? Or not really, or just a chance to be a little bitter?
I think it was his way of kind of sidestepping the question. Maybe a little bit of bashing without even mentioning him. Like the fact that he didn't even mention Flair. It's like, you know, I'm not going to talk about you. I'm not going to give you any recognition, whether it was to put him 10 out of 10 or 1 out of 10. It would be giving him some kind of recognition if he did.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a little bit of bitterness there. Now, I mean, from a personal standpoint, as a fan watching, Ric Flair promos 10 out of 10. When
Every
he
time.
loses his shit and he starts stripping down in the ring down to his boxers and starts elbow dropping,
Yep.
like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, fuck pants.
Like, exactly. Yeah, his promos 10 out of 10. His in-ring ability. Flair was a great mat wrestler.
Yes.
I'd probably give him maybe an 8 or maybe even a 9 out of 10. And what was the other category?
It was presentation.
Presentation. The way that he presented himself. I mean, he always said, "I'm nothing but class," and he's always said too, Ric Flair was not a person. It was not a character. It was a personality, and he lived it every single day.
He was a world champion.
He was Ric Flair 24/7.
Yep.
I would say I would give him probably about an 8 or maybe even a 9 out of 10.
I don't remember what the third category was, but again, I mean, to me, that was just a way of Bret wanting to, and now mind you, this was an older interview, but I think that it was just a chance for him to rip on Flair one last time without ripping on him, and then fuck you. And that's going to do it, guys, for another show. Thanks for tuning in to the Figure 4 podcast. Have a good time tonight. Stay cool, stay safe. We'll see you next year on the next show.